Hi, and welcome to Your Selling Podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Kirk, aka Your Selling Guide. In 2017, I quit a steady corporate desk job to travel the US in an RV. Along the way, I started selling on Amazon, grew multiple successful businesses, and wound up back to my roots as a small town girl. Today, I am still doing what I love, selling on Amazon and helping other sellers start and grow their own online businesses. Each week on Your Selling Podcast, we will cover different aspects of selling online and highlight other sellers just like you and I. From part-time sellers creating extra income on the side to full-time sellers growing million-dollar businesses. Think of this as a sit-down with your Amazon bestie where we can learn and grow our online businesses together. Welcome to Your Selling Podcast. Hey crew, and welcome back to another episode of Your Selling Podcast. We are in our January series, which is the No Fun series of all things income tax and selling on Amazon. Now, this week I'm going to be covering hiring a bookkeeper and hiring an accountant because they can be the same person or they could be two different people. So I'm going to cover just different things that I've learned and questions I've asked different accountants and hopefully give you some more, information about not only what you can deduct, but just hiring someone in the first place. I'm really excited to bring you fresh episodes this year in 2024, but what I'm most excited about is having you as my guest on the podcast. I absolutely love talking to other sellers, whether that's meetups. Oh, a little plug for the meetup that we have coming up in April in Dallas. I will send out all the texts and emails. If you're on my texts and emails, you'll get a notice about how to sign up for the meetup when it's there. But I really genuinely love meeting other sellers, talking to other sellers, because believe it or not, even though I've been selling for 7 years, I actually learn something new almost every time I talk to another seller, because there's a million different ways to sell on Amazon or sell anywhere online. And so it is always really important to talk to other sellers, learn from them, and plug into a community. So if you would like to be my guest on the podcast this year, I would absolutely love to have you on. You can email me at podcast@yoursellingguide.com. It comes right to my email inbox, and I will get back to you with a link to sign up. Other ways I would encourage you to plug in with the community this year in 2024 is my Retail Arbitrage Bolo group. It's a Bolo sourcing group. So every month we're out there sourcing, every week, whatever, whenever you go sourcing, we're out there sourcing for different products that make profit and sell on Amazon. We're sharing it in the group so that now you have a list of items, brands, products, stores to look for these items, these specific items, but more important, the branch leads that you can find the items or find new leads, replenishes, all that kind of stuff in the Bolo group. In 2024, I'm actually adding monthly hangout calls. So once a month in the group, we will be having Zoom hangout calls where you can chat with the other sellers in the group. We'll be answering questions, talking hot bolos, and all of that. It's a huge perk to the groups from the Q4 groups. I absolutely love them, and so I'm excited to bring them to the regular RA Bolo group this year in 2024. So again, join at yoursellingguide.com/bolo, and I can't wait to source with you this year for Amazon. Okay, so in this first part of the podcast, we are going to go over hiring, like what does it entail when you hire an accountant and a bookkeeper. So I am not a tax professional. I'm not a lawyer. I'm nothing. I'm just a girl who sells online and has a business and has hired these various people. So please do not take anything from this podcast as legal tax advice. You need to talk to your own tax professional to get the situation for your specific needs, because everyone's tax needs situation is different and the IRS does not make it easy for us, right? So make sure that you talk to someone who does know all those laws, because I am not that person. But I am a girl who has done this, and so I'm going to share with you what I've learned and things to ask and things to look for. All right, starting with the accountant. They do not need to be Amazon specific. I think a lot of sellers get stuck in thinking they have to understand Amazon. They just need to understand that you run a business and that it's an inventory-based business, which most, I'm not going to say all, but most business accountants do fully understand that. So that is tip one, is just don't go thinking you need to get an Amazon one. There's a lot of Amazon ones out there. Some are affordable, some are not so affordable. Well, they're more high cost because they have this niche attached, attracting Amazon sellers. And then we got the Amazon sellers who think that they need someone because they don't know. We don't know what we're doing, right? That's why we hire these people, because we don't have a clue. So then they think that they need someone, and then they end up paying higher price, potentially. I'm not saying that's across the board, but just potentially. So that is one thing just to look out for. Now, I would also shop around. You can usually meet with an accountant for a small fee or free of charge. It just depends. I met with my accountant before hiring him. We was a $200 visit, and I did get lots of questions answered in that, and I think we were there for like 3 hours. Multiple businesses, multiple questions. So honestly, it's a business expense when you pay that accountant, so it's definitely worth the time. So ask around, call around. I know for bookkeepers, I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but bookkeepers, they will usually actually go into your QuickBooks for free on like the onset of the talking, what do you call it? I'm like in the dating lingo, when like the get to know you area, they'll log into your QuickBooks and see how many transactions and accounts and just kind of like what's going on with it. And then they'll give you their price, because it usually depends on how many accounts you have, how many transactions, how many linked credit cards, bank accounts, all that kind of stuff. Okay, sorry, back to the accountant. So accountants, besides the like sit down, and you should sit down with an accountant at least twice a year, one to do your taxes and one to plan. Like usually in the summertime, you want to sit down and plan like how much money am I possibly going to pay in taxes this year? What can I do to offset that, or whatever? So you pay by return. So I have paid for my business tax returns anywhere from $1,000 a return to $700 a return. My new accountant has far more experience than my old accountant and is cheaper. I feel like that says something right there. And those are for my business tax returns. So on my personal returns, even before I had businesses, I paid for, like when I lived in LA, I had an accountant one year do my taxes for me, and I paid $200 for that return. So it depends on if you have to file state returns, most people do, and federal returns, everyone does, hopefully. So that does depend how much it is going to be, but I paid anywhere from $200 to $400 a personal return, because your business return is going to be different than your personal return, and I will get into that in a bit here. Now, if you have a single member LLC, you won't have to file a business return. Only S corps and partnerships, LLCs formed like that, or even corporations like higher up, that's above me, but you know, if you have a partnership LLC or if you have an S Corp LLC, those do require their own tax return, a business tax return. You're not paying any taxes, at least in my experience, I'm not paying taxes at that time. Those returns are due on March 15th. And all that does is whatever happened on that return, it flows through the money, the profit or loss that I've made will flow through to my personal tax return, which is of course due on April 15th. Or 16th or something. I think it depends when April 15th lands. But anyways, tax day, April 15th is when those returns are due. But business returns are due a month prior, so March 15th. So if you have an LLC that's a partnership or is filed as an S Corp with the IRS, then you need to do those returns by March 15th. In my experience, I've been an S Corp and I've been a single member LLC. So you need to sit down and talk to someone, probably an accountant, to really know which way you should be filing. But an S Corp, again, is going to require that extra tax filing. So just know that. Now, my new accountant is going to have me stop being an S Corp, and because he says it's going to save me money and be overall better for me, and then it'll also save me money because I don't have to do that extra return. So that is something that I am excited about. And again, I talked to an accountant and that's what they told me. So all the more reason you really want to go talk to, it's not scary. I know, because anytime we don't know how to do something or don't understand something, it's super scary to us, but it really isn't scary. They have all the knowledge. They will answer all your questions. And most of all, hiring an accountant, I think 3 or 4 years ago now, has been so much just peace of mind and stress relief that I don't have to worry about this year round at all. I never really worry about it until I have to take my checkbook out and pay the IRS. But I never really worry about it the way that I see a lot of sellers in the community do, simply because they haven't talked to anyone. They've been scared. The money, honestly, like I said, $200 to sit down, have all your questions answered. You might even be able to do it for cheaper. It's just a huge relief. And again, business right off that $200 that you paid to the accountant. Okay, so hiring a bookkeeper. I talked about this a little bit, but you really, there's varying degrees of knowledge that they will have. There's there's a lot of courses out there teaching people how to do bookkeeping. You could take one for yourself, but most of the courses are out there teaching people how to be bookkeepers, which is a great, let me tell you, if you want to RV around the country, it's a great job to have. It's remote, you can do it anywhere, it's awesome. However, with that, there's varying degrees of knowledge that these bookkeepers have. So I would go into it like you're kind of interviewing each other. Basically, it's a partnership. They need to know, you need to know that you guys work good together and that they understand everything you're doing. Again, does not need to be an Amazon specific. It might help, but it doesn't need to be, because again, you're running an inventory-based business. If they understand that, they will understand your books. Now, in the past, I've had a bookkeeper who charged a lot of money and I never heard from. I have a new bookkeeper I love. I hear from her almost every Monday, and at least once a month, she's giving me reports every month of how I'm doing, straight from my QuickBooks. She's logged into my QuickBooks. She's cleaned everything up from the mess that it was before, and now my accountant's like, yay, I can see everything clearly, and it's been working out great. Now, my new bookkeeper did tell me that she won't actually work with anyone who doesn't use QuickBooks, because QuickBooks is kind of the standard for businesses, and I know it's annoying because it's an extra fee, but it's not that much of a fee every month. And it is, I'm going to say it's easy. It's not easy, believe me, but it's easy to log in myself and see what's going on in there. And I don't touch anything. She does all the categorizing and all that, but I can see everything. It's kind of user-friendly in that format. I know where things are and I can see everything. If my bank needs a statement for some reason, I can go in there and pull the profit loss or the balance sheet. So you will need most likely QuickBooks for your bookkeeper, and always usually get QuickBooks online, but talk to the bookkeeper. If you don't have any QuickBooks yet, talk to the bookkeeper first. Now, if you're going to do your own books, which you can, there's the free one is called Wave Accounting. I haven't used it, but I do know other RV business owners who do use it, so it is possible that you can do your own books with Wave Accounting. Now, the bottom line about hiring a bookkeeper or an accountant is this: it's worth it. I gotta tell you, as a business owner, it is so worth it to not have to think about all of that stuff that I don't know. It's not my wheelhouse, so I hire it out, and I'm very happy to do so. Like I said, so much stress is off of my shoulders that I don't have to think about this, and it's honestly worth the money. I would gladly pay more. So what am I paying? $700 for, plus $400 personal return, $700 for the business return, plus $200 mid-year planning. Come on, Nikki, do the math.
2 hours later.
$1,300. It's really worth it to me, and I would gladly pay more. And again, that's a business expense. That is a business write-off. It's going to help you save money on your taxes down the road. I know just from comments I get on YouTube and community members' feedback in the groups that you guys really worry about this year-round, and I also know I did too. You'll worry about this for months on end, and I'm telling you, making the time to hire the accountant or hire the bookkeeper. Like I said, the bookkeeper's a little more costly because I'm paying, it depends. My business is really complicated. So across all three of my businesses, I'm paying $700 a month in bookkeeping. Again, that's across 3 businesses. But it's worth it because the tax deduction and the sheer stress that I don't have to worry about these things anymore. So if you are constantly worrying and thinking about it because you don't understand it, I would highly recommend either hiring someone or taking a course and learning it yourself. Hey crew, is your Amazon business set up for success this year? Do you know how much profit you really made on that item you just sold? Or what about this? Do you notice when the Amazon FBA fees change on a product in your inventory? These are just some of the reasons why I love Sellerboard and why I've partnered with them on the You're Selling podcast. I have been using Sellerboard for 4 years now, and I absolutely do not know how I will run my business without it. I love how simple Sellerboard is to use. The desktop version is set up so easy. As soon as you connect your Amazon account, all of your products from the past, anything you've ever sold, is going to flow into that. And the way I love it and use it the most is actually when I'm outsourcing. I have Sellerboard app right on my phone, and I can visually see the images of the products I'm selling today, yesterday, last month, last year, whatever I want to look at. I can see it in real time right on my Sellerboard app. Sellerboard is an affordable must-have tool for all Amazon sellers. And as listeners of this podcast, they have given you 2 months free to try it out for yourself. There's absolutely no credit card required to sign up, and you can cancel at any time. Head to yoursellingguide.com/sellerboardprofit to set up your free trial today. Again, yoursellingguide.com/sellerboardprofit to get your 2-month free trial today. Accountants and bookkeepers are really like anything else. You're hiring them to do the job for you. If they're not doing a good job, or you're not happy, or it's not a right fit, let them go. It's not the end of the world. They are here to make your life easier, and if it's not happening, then it's not happening, right? So definitely it's worth it. You should look at it like interviewing. You want to make it a good fit. You want to make sure they understand what you're talking about, that you can communicate clearly. And if that's not happening, it's okay to move on from that. Find another one. It's worth it, believe me. Okay, now part 2 of this podcast is I went to meet with my accountant, like I said, and I had a bunch of questions from the community members in the Q4 Bolo group. So I have all of the answers of their questions here. So here's a little bit of tax information that I found out. Again, I'm not a tax professional, even though this came from my accountant. He's not giving you advice. This is just general stuff that you should talk to your own tax professional about before doing anything with the IRS. Home office deductions. Okay, so we are all mostly, probably, selling out of our houses, right? So here's how the home office deduction works and how it was explained to me. You take the square footage of your entire house, whatever that square footage is, and you can deduct, and then you do the square footage of your workspace. So if you have a bedroom or you use a part of your room, whatever, take that square footage of that area, and then you figure out the percentage of it. So if you have a 1,000 square foot house and you have 250 square feet is your office, that's 25%, right? So we have 25% of your home is dedicated to your home office. Now you can deduct 25% of your mortgage, your electric bill, your trash bill, your internet bill, your phone bill, like whatever bills you have associated with owning a home, you can deduct those as your home office deductions. The only things he said that you cannot deduct are the interest you pay on your mortgage and your property taxes, because those are already deductions somewhere else on your filing. So you can't deduct those, but you can deduct everything else as your home office deduction. One of the community members had asked, like, what about if your stuff is literally taking over your entire house? Like your dining room's full, there's stuff in the living room. He said, technically you can, but you would need to work out the situation. There's like specifics that you're going to need to talk to your accountant with specifically. But yes, if it's taking over your whole house, there are ways that you can deduct even more of it. So definitely another reason to talk to an accountant. A lot of questions are around cost of goods. So we went in there like, what is the cost of goods, blah, blah, blah. He said, yes, it's cost of goods sold, right? That's what COGS means, cost of goods sold. So any inventory you have at the end of the year and you didn't sell wouldn't be taken out of as COGS because you didn't sell it. It's still sitting in your inventory. It's still sitting in the Amazon warehouse, which is why if you go back to episode 44 of this year, I came out with the how to pull different reports on Amazon. So you can get your ending year valuation of COGS, cost of goods sold, or not. I guess they're not sold. Your cost of goods, your stock sitting at the Amazon warehouse, you can pull that inventory valuation report. Again, episode 44 goes over how to pull that report in Amazon, but you would need to know that. So you want to know every year how much inventory you started with. So if you're starting selling this year, you're going to start with 0, right? You don't have anything. But if you started with, $25,000 of inventory this year, but then you're going to end with $15,000 of inventory at the end of the year, you need to know those numbers. You need to know those numbers for your tax return. So definitely pull that inventory evaluation report. Now, sales tax you paid on cost of goods. So I know, like, I don't use my tax exempt at Target, but I use it at every other place I source. So I'm not worried about the money I spend at Target. I just factor that into my total product cost when I go to sell it on Amazon. I factor the sales tax in. However, a community member asked, like, where do you enter line items for sales tax if you're having to pay sales tax? He said as long as it's anywhere in your P&L, somewhere it's there. So whether you include it in cost of goods like I do, or you break it out as sales tax all on its own, as long as it's there somewhere for your account, you're good, and you can take that deduction. Now, in some states, you can actually file to get that sales tax back from the state that you are in, obviously. So I'm in Oklahoma, so if I paid sales tax, I don't know if Oklahoma does this, I'm just talking in general right now. But if I paid sales tax at Target and I want to get my money back, I can submit, I guess, to the state of Oklahoma, like, this was for a resale and I shouldn't have paid it, blah, blah. I don't know. I've never done it. Don't plan to do it. I'm already taking the deduction in my cost of goods sold. So if that's something you want to look into, definitely look into it. I am not going to have any more information on that, but yeah. Mileage. Now, anytime you're driving anywhere for business, you want to be tracking that miles. I absolutely recommend Mile IQ because it is so simple to use. I think it's like $60 a year, maybe $70 a year, and it's always running in the background. So anytime you're driving or flying, which is a whole nother thing, but anytime you're driving, it's tracking your miles, and then you go and you say later on that day or the next day, or maybe you do it once a week, you go, it's literally like swiping. Right, left, business, personal, whatever. And it also has in there for medical. So if you go to the doctor, you can claim those mileage. It's a different mileage deduction than work, but you can claim those miles as tax write-off. So I highly would recommend Mile IQ. There are some other ones out there people love, but that's the one I use, and that's the one I absolutely love because I am never going to remember to turn it on every time I get in the car and go. I just won't. So I like that it's always running. Now, anytime I'm flying, it's also running, and it thinks I've driven somewhere real fast, I guess. So you just mark those as like public transportation or other, but it's super easy to use. I did not track my miles like in a proper way for years, and then I finally got Mile IQ and I was like, this is so easy. Why wasn't I using it before? Again, paying for Mile IQ is a tax deduction. So an example that was given in the group. So if I drive from my house to Target to source, but then I got to go from Target to pick up a kid from school. This is hypothetical. I have no kids to pick up from school. But anyway, so if I go pick up a kid from school, now that Target to school is now personal, and that does not count as business mileage, but from home to Target does count. So just to know when you're doing your mileage, the different things of what's personal and what's not. But again, tracking mileage and taking that deduction can really add up, especially if you're rural like me and it takes like 30 to 40 minutes just to get to a store. Another question was around meals. Now, meals, you need to be away from your home for at least 24 hours. So if I go and stay in Oklahoma City overnight, the hotel room is going to be on my work, and any meals I have are going to be on my work. Now, again, talking to your accountant for your specifics would be recommended, but there has to be a justifiable business reason to be taking a meal. So like when I'm sourcing, I'm paying personal money just for a day sourcing. I'm buying my lunch if I eat out at Panera Bread, which has been my go-to lately. I am eating with my own personal money. Usually I pack my own lunches. I have a little cooler. I do my own thing. So it's always been to me, that's made sense to me because just like when I worked in an office, we might go out to lunch and the boss buys for all of us because again, we're a business, we're all together. Everyone works together at the same company and the boss is deciding to pay for our meals. But if I go out with coworkers on our own, we're using our personal money. If I go out on my own on lunch, I'm using my personal money, right? So it's kind of along those same lines. But again, talk to your accountant if you have a specific question about that. So helpful. Like obviously, right? That's why we're hiring help. But hiring people to help me in my business has been the only way that I'm still here and able to do this because there is no way that I would still be able to do everything that I do without hiring help. Everyone I've talked to on this podcast, and I'm sure you've heard the stories, who has hired help in various places is how they've grown their business. So you can do a lot of stuff on your own, but there's going to be a time probably when you want to think about hiring help. Now, what you want to pay them is totally up to you, but you do want to give them a 1099 so that you can write this off on your business, right? So I currently use Gusto for my payroll taxes, and or not payroll taxes, but yes, taxes, but payroll. You can hire contractors through there. It does cost money to use Gusto, so I actually wouldn't recommend it if you're just trying to hire one person. I had payroll people. I was on payroll. Everyone was on payroll, so I needed the help. But if you're just going to hire your friend, neighbor, sister, brother, whatever, you can actually pay through PayPal, and the reason I love PayPal is because it gives them a 1099. You don't have to do that. Now, my accountant said you can go to like Staples, Office Depot, whatever's still around these days, and get literally a form 1099 to give. You can fill it out and then give to the person or keep for yourself or whatever. So it's not like a huge thing. That seems complicated to me, but PayPal is free to use and will give the person a 1099 at the end of the year so that you don't have to worry about that. I'm sure there's other things out there that do this, but those are the two I know of. And again, I'm only talking about what I know here. Other write-offs or tax deductions that come with hiring help is if you need to give them software or tools or buy them something, or maybe you want to give them a meal like we talked about when your boss takes you out to lunch. You could be the boss taking them out to lunch. So there are reasons or things that you can give the 1099 contractor as like part of being in business. I was told I could actually give 1099s health insurance if I wanted to. So there's a lot of different things that I'm going to talk to my accountant a little bit more about that, but there's a lot of different things out there that you can do with the 1099 contractor and provide for them, and that are tax write-offs for your business. Now, in an earlier episode with Mark 2 of Not Your Dad's CPA, we did kind of touch on hiring your kids. And there is a tax, like where your kids don't have to pay taxes. I think, if I remember right, again, talk to your accountant, there's like a standard deduction, which I think is like $12,000 or $13,000 on tax returns. You can pay them up to that amount, and they have to be under a certain age. I think it's 18, but don't quote me on that. You can pay them up to like $12,000 a year, whatever that standard deduction is, and they won't have to pay taxes on it. And you obviously take the write-off that you're paying them. So there's a bunch of different things to hiring help. And at the end of the day, it's really helpful. Like this podcast, I have a new editor who's editing this podcast. Shout out to Damian Ross. And he's helping me do this so that I don't have to do it anymore. And now I have more free time to do other things like be in my community, answering your questions, hanging out, all that stuff. So hiring help can really help grow your business. So I would highly recommend looking into that if, again, you have to be able to afford it. But if it's like a crunch, honestly, there's things I'd rather pay someone to do than even pay myself. Like, I won't take money, and I'd rather pay them to do it just so that it gives me that freedom and I have time to grow my business in other areas. Hopefully this podcast encouraged you to get out there and hire a bookkeeper and or an accountant. I would look at an accountant first. They're less expensive, and you might be able to take a course and learn about bookkeeping on your own. There are lots of little community colleges and technical colleges out there that have QuickBook courses. I get paid for one. I didn't do it because I didn't have time to do it, but I paid for one. It's an online course at a little technical school out here. I didn't have to apply to go to the school or anything. I just literally signed up. It's like adult education classes for QuickBooks Online, how to use it. So look into those things first if you want to try and do it yourself. It's a little more cost effective, and there's, I'm sure, tons of YouTube videos out there, hopefully. Or if you're listening to this and you're a QuickBook expert, maybe you should make YouTube videos and help others. I don't know. Anyways, but there's a lot of things out there that can make this like seemingly difficult, confusing thing simpler for everyone. So I highly recommend looking into hiring or dedicating time to do it for yourself and learn. And so then you know and you can understand it. But yeah, hiring an accountant has been, I mean, I would literally, maybe not every day, but at least once a week worry about these taxes and my books and all that kind of stuff. And now I don't worry about it at all. And for that is pretty much priceless. So as I mentioned before, I would love to chat with you on the podcast. So please reach out to me at podcast@YourSellingGuide.com. And I would love to have you on the show. And next week coming up, we have Not Your Dad's CPA Mark II, going to be answering a lot of your guys' questions in more detail from an actual tax professional. So I look forward to that episode. Until next week, happy sourcing.